Okay, so from the history of the English drama, I think so in the last two videos done. So here I am going to start with the Shakespeare. Okay, so the William Shakespeare time, the William Shakespeare time era came into existence in the 16th century to the public theatre. Basically, 15 nearby 16th century in the public to the public theatre, his period is started. Okay, and he wrote for the contemporary theatre. He wrote for what? He is writing for the contemporary theatre. So his drama is totally based on the contemporary time, and he little bit make the changes in the Elizabethan stage with the great resource and invention. So he had made the changes in the Elizabethan stage and resource. But the genius, but the genius of Shakespeare should not allow the rest of the drama of his age to be obscured. Okay. So, but the genius of Shakespeare should not allow the rest of the drama of his age to be obscure. Basically, there is no evidence are there for his drama. Basically, the 16th century, the Shakespearean era came into existence, and he had made the little bit changes in the Elizabethan time, Elizabethan stage. But his genius, but his intellect should not allow the rest of the drama of his age to be obscure. Okay, so basically, his geniusness is not work in the rest of the drama. Only in Europe only. Contemporary to him was the Ben Jonson. So at his time there was a Ben Jonson. He was a classicist, moralist, and reformer of drama. So Ben Jonson was also at his time, and he was a classicist. Okay, and he was a classicist, reformer, and thus. Okay, and in comedy, Ben Jonson genius is found at his best. So in comedy, so he's Ben Jonson was very famous in comedy and found at his best, and his influence was considerable. So Ben Jonson is influencing in the comedy. So the restoration dramatist, the Ben Jonson and the William Shakespeare. If you see, I want to tell you that these are the Elizabethan time. Okay, so restoration dramatist learn strongly upon him. So the restoration dramatist, which means the after then they had learned so much from him. Closing on theaters by Puritans. So the theater was closed in 1642, brought this greatest of all periods in the history of English drama to an end. So because of the Puritans, because there was a civil war, with the civil wars, no theatre existed from 1642 to 1660. The next phase which appeared after the restoration produced, so the next phase which appeared after the restoration produced a very different kind of dramatic literature. Okay, so the next phase which appear after the restoration produce is very different kind of dramatic literature. Dramatists like Chapman, so dramatists like Chapman, Thomas Middleton, okay, Thomas Middleton, Webster, Dekker were in the forefront. So basically, there was a civil war, and after the civil war, there were some dramatists came. Chapman, Thomas Middleton, Webster, and Dekker were at the forefront. When Charles II came back with the restoration of 1660, so Charles II is the king of United Kingdom, and he came back with the restoration. The theatres were reopened. So because of him, the theatre was open. Drama theatre, because of civil war, it was closed. So when the Charles II came, the theatre was reopened, and the restoration comedy achieved its peculiar excellence. So in restoration period, the comedy was achieved its excellence. Drama developed into the class drama with upper class ethos. So drama was also developed in the class wise upper class ethos. It lasted beyond this period into the first decade of the 18th century. So these upper class dramas are lasted beyond the 18th century. Comedy in the early 18th century declined into sentimentalism. So whichever comedies are there, it was converted into the sentimentalism. Okay, and it became comedy of sentimentalism is nothing but like comedy plus emotional comedy of manners, and it became the comedy of manners. George Etheridge, Etheridge was its most important exponent. From such depths, the drama was rescued by Oliver Goldsmith and Richard Sheridan. With Sheridan, something of the brilliance of Restoration dialogue written into comedy, but with more genial atmosphere. The characters were firmly presented with clarity and reminiscent. So the characters were clarity and reminiscence of Johnson, but with no depth in Sheridan's world. So clarity was there in the Johnson, but there is no depth in Sheridan world. No new interpretation of human nature. In this, he was nearer to Oscar Wilde than to Johnson. So basically, when the Charles II came, okay. So when the Charles II came, the theater was reopened, and the comedy went in the next level. The comedy was which was happened before the Civil War. It was a little bit different than here. Okay. Now the modern drama. Third one. Modern drama, which means the modern theater, where we are now. Clear? Where we are now. Okay. The modern theater with its picture. The modern theater with its picture frame stage. Okay. The modern theater with its picture frame stage was there. Pictures frame stage is extra taking female parts. It's movable scenery designed to create a visual image of the local of each scene, and its artificial land was developed during the Restoration period. So, if I talk about the modern theater, the most of the modern theater backgrounds and the lightings were already developed in the Restoration period. So there is a clear influence of France on theater, the audience and the themes. So in the modern theater, the most of the lightings and background work which was already developed in the Restoration period, like lighting and all, okay, stage and all, scenery and all, and we can see in the modern theater, the was totally influenced by the France and audience and themes. The drama of the 19th century, which means after 18, was on the whole way to decline for many reasons. So the drama of the 19th century was a way to decline, and the theater was home mainly to irregular. The theater was home mainly to irregular spectacle, melodrama, and farce. A simple external reason can be found in the monopoly held by two houses. So there was a monopoly held by two houses, the Covent Garden and the Drury Lane, for the performance of serious drama. So the audience which gathered to the 19th century theater the had they didn't had the intelligence or the imagination of the Elizabeth audience. So basically, after the 19th century, uh, was whole on the way to decline. So the theater of the 19th century, the theater was declining. Why? Because it was irregular spectacle melodrama. So here the audience are not that much not intelligent like Elizabethan period. The danger in the 19th century theater was that it was unrelated to the life of the time. So what is the danger in the 19th century? It was unrelated to the life. The changes in the structure of society, the in the society, so many changes have modified the human personality itself as a new interpretation. As a new interpretation was essential. So whatever changes are taking place in the structure of society had so modified the human personality itself that a new interpretation was essential. Okay, and now Ibsen. Ibsen, the great Norwegian dramatist. So Ibsen is a great Norwegian dramatist of the 19th century. Dominates the realistic drama. Okay, so he was a person, he dominates the realistic drama, and he developed the modernist, realist, social, and psychological drama like Dollhouse, Ghost, Enemy of the People. Okay, Enemy of the People. They are far more subtle in stagecraft and profound in thought than anything in the modern English theatre. But it was only George Bernard Shaw who was deeply influenced and affected by Ibsen's innovative contribution, and he was most brilliant playwright of his time. He alone had understood the greatness of Ibsen, and he was determined as that his own place should also be a vehicle for ideas. The responsibility of elevation of English drama to the brilliance of the Norway fell with Oscar Wilde and G.B. Shaw in the late 19th and early 20th century. Okay, so basically, if I talk about the Ibsen dramatist is very famous because in the modern theatre there was a danger because everything was unreal. So because of him, it was converted the reality as came. The 20th century showed a talent in the drama which was 19th century could not combine. So in 20th century there was a talent, but in 19th century could not combine. H. Granville, okay, Granville Barker, John Galsworthy, St. John's, Irvine were some of the playwrights who explored the contemporary problem. So these were the playwrights who had explored the contemporary problem and work. And had been associated with a group of various dramatists whose work was normally produced in Dublin. Much that it is best the modern drama in English developed from this moment. So one of the originators was Lady Gregory with W.B. Yeats and J.M. Synge. They were the most important dramatists of the Irish revival who used a sense of tragic, a violent species of rich and highly flavored language. The T.S. Eliot experimented with Greek tragedy in the early 40s of the 20th century. Other dramatists of the modern era, John Osborne wrote on the people who grew up after the Second World War. And look back, other important playwrights of modern era. Okay, so basically, if I talk about, there are two things are there: 19th century and 20th century. In 19th century, there was no realistic. In 20th century, there was a realistic had came. Okay, a realistic had came, and now the Indian drama. Earlier, seeds of Indian drama can be found in Sanskrit drama. Okay, so we can found in Sanskrit drama from the first century AD. Okay, from the first century AD in Mahabhashya by Patanjali provides a feasible date for the beginning of the theatre in India. The major source of evidence is a treatise. The major source of evidence is a treatise on theatres by Bharat Muni. It is the most complete work of dramatology in the ancient world. It gives mythological account. It gives mythological account of the origin of theatre. Modern Indian drama, however, has influence from all over the world as well as the Sanskrit and Urdu. So basically, if I talk about Indian drama, is way more old. Indian drama was actually started in the anatomy, Mahabhashya, Mahabhashya by Patanjali. You can find it evidence, and in Natya Shastra. And nowadays, the in Indian drama is actually influenced by all over the world as well as Sanskrit and Urdu tradition. Clear? Okay, so